sky heavy with sand and silence as the last breath of a violent desert storm drifts away, leaving behind a wrecked wagon half buried beneath torn canvas and wind-blown earth. The sun rises like a burning blade cutting across the wasteland as Chief Nanton of the Apache rides toward the wreck after catching sight of a glint from afar. The land is still hot from the day before, and the storm has scattered debris across the plains, but something in the distance pulls his gaze again and again, until he urges his horse closer, following an instinct older than memory itself. As he approaches, he sees the tracks of panicked horses, dragged harnesses, and broken wheels. The wagon has been tossed sideways, one axle cracked, as if the storm tried to tear it apart for reasons only the desert spirits could understand. Nanton climbs down from his horse, his boots sinking into soft sand, and the dry wind whispers around him as if urging him forward. Every move he makes is quiet and deliberate, for he has survived too many dangers to treat a silent ruin lightly. He leans under the broken canvas, ready for what he might find, whether it be a threat, a spirit sign, or a body waiting to be claimed by the earth. Instead, he finds here a young woman lies stretched across the sand pale, and still her dress torn at the hem, as though she fought the storm itself. Her hair is tangled with dust, yet even covered in grit there is something fine and fragile about her, something that makes Nanton pause and study her with an intensity that surprises him. Her hand is curled against her chest as if clutching a last lingering hope. He crouches beside her and places two fingers gently at her neck, seeking the faint rhythm of life. When he feels the soft beat beneath her skin, a breath escapes him, a breath he did not realize he was holding. She is alive, barely, but alive. Her lips are dry and cracked, her skin fever hot from exhaustion and sun. Her body shakes with the remnant chill of night wind. Though the day is already warming, Nanton gathers his water skin and lifts her head with great care, letting a sip touch her mouth slowly. Too slowly she swallows, as though dragging herself up from the edge of darkness. She does not open her eyes yet, but the movement is enough to tell him she is fighting to stay tethered to life. The desert around them is silent, but to Nanton it feels as though the world itself has paused, watching, waiting. Something deeper than reason stirs in his chest, a pull written in old bloodlines and sacred stories. He brushes a strand of dust-tangled hair from her cheek, and in the hush of the morning he whispers words meant for her alone. Destiny brought us together. The sound of his voice does not wake her, yet he sees the faintest flutter of her lashes, as though some part of her heard and recognized the promise within it. He lifts her into his arms, feeling how light she is, how close she had been to being swallowed by the desert. Had he arrived minutes later, she may have vanished into the endless sands forever. Carries her to his horse, cradling her with the gentleness one would give to a sacred burden. His people are camped beyond the ridge, and he knows the healers can help her, but more than that, he knows he cannot leave her, not now, not after finding her like this, not after feeling the strange, powerful certainty that she crossed his path for a reason. The wind brushes against him, almost approving, as he settles her before him, holding her steady as he guides the horse forward as they begin the slow journey back to his people. Nanton looks down at her again, and though she still sleeps, her breathing becomes a little stronger, a little less desperate, as though the desert at last is loosening its hold. The chief raises his gaze to the horizon, feeling the weight of fate settle upon his shoulders, and for the first time in many seasons he allows himself to believe that perhaps the spirits still weave paths meant to be walked together. She is not just a stranger rescued from the storm. She is a sign, a beginning, a turning of the wheel of destiny, and the journey that awaits them has already begun. Apache camp, where the rising sun filters through tall pines and warm embers of the night fire glow beneath layers of ash. Chief Nanton rides through the entrance, carrying the unconscious young woman in his arms, and every warrior and elder turns their head, for it is rare for their leader to return with someone from the outside, and rarer still for him to look so fiercely protective. The horses stir, the children whisper, and the old women nudge one another, wondering what story the wind has brought to their home. This time Nanton dismounts with careful strength, lifting The woman, as though she weighs no more than a bundle of feathers, he heads straight for the lodge of the healer, an elder named Shining Willow, whose wisdom is trusted by all. She greets him without surprise, for she has long believed that destiny likes to arrive in the arms of those who least expect it. She motions for him to bring the girl inside, and together they settle the stranger on a woven mat soft with furs that smell faintly of sage and cedar. Shining Willow examines the girl with a gentle hand, her touch practiced and patient. She checks the bruise on her temple, the dryness of her lips, and the faint tremor in her limbs. The healer looks up at Nat and nods. "This one fought to live," she says softly, breath and spirit both nearly taken, but she clung to the edge and waited for a hand to pull her back. Nanton feels a strange warmth in his chest at those words, and though he keeps his face still, his heart quickens. She needs rest, water, and safety, Shining Willow continues, and we must give her time to wake on her own. The healer mixes herbs into a small bowl, creating a soothing paste, then applies it to the girl's brow. Her breathing steadies little by little, and color begins to return to her cheeks. The lodge fills with the scent of medicine and hope, while Nanton watches without moving, unwilling to leave her side even for a moment. News spreads swiftly through the camp like a wildfire waiting for wind, and by midday several women gather outside whispering about the stranger. Some wonder if she is an omen, others guess she is a survivor of raiders, and a few bold ones whisper that perhaps the chief has finally found the woman he was meant to protect. The warriors exchange glances, and though none speak, the thought is shared in their silence. When the girl finally stirs, the room grows still. Her eyelids flutter, her hands shift beneath the blanket, and a soft sound escapes her throat as though she is caught between nightmares and waking. Shining Willow kneels beside her and speaks in a quiet voice, telling her she is safe, telling her that no harm will come to her here. Slowly the girl opens her eyes, staring up at a roof woven from branches, and hides a place unfamiliar yet strangely calm. Nanton steps forward and she turns her gaze to him. Her eyes widen with a mixture of confusion, fear, and fragile hope. She tries to sit up, but her strength fails, and Nanton gently steadies her without touching her too, firmly giving her space to understand where she is. The girl swallows and asks in a faint, trembling voice, "Where am I?" "You are with the Apache people," Nanton answers, his voice calm like a river at dusk. "You were found after the storm, lying beside a broken wagon. You are safe now, and no one here will harm you." The girl presses a hand to her forehead, closing her eyes as memories return in fragments. The storm, the wagon overturning, the panic that followed, and the moment when darkness swallowed everything. She opens her eyes again, focusing on him with more clarity. Now her voice quivers as she speaks her name, Lydia. Grace, and even saying it seems to steady her spirit a little. Nanton nods, repeating her name in his mind, feeling its weight and shape as though it holds meaning he has yet to understand. He tells her she should rest, that water and food will be brought, and that the healer will stay beside her. Lydia tries to thank him, but emotion tightens her throat, the relief of waking in safety after believing she would die in an empty desert is almost too much for her to bear. As evening settles, the camp glows with firelight, and Lydia rests with her head turned softly toward the doorway, where Nanton stands, watching the shadows shift across her face. A quiet understanding settles between them, unspoken yet undeniable. Fate has drawn their paths together, and neither can yet imagine how deeply the journey will bind their lives from this moment forward. Next morning, when the first rays of dawn slip through the lodge walls, painting soft gold across Lydia Grace's face, she wakes slowly, still exhausted, but no longer lost in the haze of fever. Her heart beats with a fragile steadiness, and for the first time she is aware of the sounds around her, voices of women preparing morning meals, the crackle of distant fires, and the gentle rhythm of hoofbeats as young riders begin their daily patrols. It is a world entirely new to her, and she feels both sheltered and unsettled by its unfamiliar calm. Shining Willow sits beside her, grinding herbs with patient hands, and offers Lydia a drink mixed with healing powders. Lydia hesitates only a moment before accepting, trusting the kindness she has felt since waking. The liquid is bitter yet comforting, warming her stomach and easing a faint ache behind her temples. While she sips, the healer speaks in a quiet tone, telling her she is safe, that no danger reaches this place without the Apache seeing it long before it arrives. Lydia listens and tries to believe her, but shadows still live behind her eyes, shadows shaped like memories she struggles to face. Outside the lodge, Chief Nanton speaks with two scouts. A pair of horses had passed near the storm wreck 2 nights before, moving with a purposeful path, not the wandering of lost travelers. One set of tracks was heavier, as though carrying someone. Unwilling or injured, Nanton studies the sand marks etched on a tanned hide map, and the unease in him deepens. He knows these tracks are connected to the woman resting in the healer's lodge. He feels it in his bones, the same way he felt drawn to her broken wagon, as if something far greater than coincidence is weaving their 2 stories together. He enters the lodge, and Lydia tenses before she recognizes him. The memory of his voice, the moment she first heard it, when she drifted between life and death, returns to her like a soft whisper. Destiny brought us together. Those words echo in her mind, and though she cannot fully understand why, they bring a strange comfort. She does not look away from him this time. Nanton asks if she feels strong enough to speak, for he has questions that may help him protect her. Lydia draws a slow breath, her fingers twisting in the blanket as she gathers her courage. She nods, though a tremor runs through her. She has not spoken truth to anyone in many weeks. Fear silenced her long before the storm did. He kneels beside her, not looming over her, but staying level with her gaze, showing respect and patience. His presence is steady like a mountain against the wind. Lydia closes her eyes briefly before she speaks about the man who wrote to her the letters filled with promises of marriage and safety and new beginnings. She traveled believing she would be welcomed into a life far from the cruelty she fled, but when she reached the arranged meeting point, the man she expected never appeared. Another arrived instead, a man whose stare filled her with dread and whose words told her she had stepped into a trap rather than an escape. She tells Nanton how she ran, how the stranger chased her, how the storm swept in like a merciful shield, hiding her from the man long enough for her to flee into the desert. Her voice breaks as she recounts the moment the wagon overturned, the world spinning and the desert swallowing her sight until everything faded into silence. Nanton listens with a stillness that is not cold but powerful. The fire in his eyes grows darker, not with anger at her, but with anger at what hunted her. He places a hand near hers, not touching, yet offering the weight of his promise. "You are under my protection now," he says, "and no one who means you harm will cross these lands without facing me." Lydia feels something shift inside her, something like the first breath after near drowning. For the first time since she left her old life, she is not alone. She senses strength in him, not just of a leader, but of a man who chooses to stand beside her without expectation or demand. As p.m. the sun climbs higher, the scouts bring new information confirming that the man pursuing her has not turned back. He is moving closer, step by determined step. Lydia's fear returns, yet this time she does not face it alone. Nanton rises with resolve burning through him, and he informs her that he will meet the threat before it reaches the heart of his people. Part 3 closes with Lydia watching him leave the lodge, feeling a strange mixture of fear, hope, and gratitude. She whispers a silent prayer that the man who saved her life will return safely, and that destiny which brought them together will not tear them apart. Just as their story begins to take shape, the early afternoon, when the desert heat rolls across the plains, stretching like a golden sea, Chief Nanton rides ahead of his scouts, his eyes scanning every ridge, every shadow for signs of movement. His mind is focused on the man who has been pursuing Lydia Grace, the one who almost claimed her before the storm intervened. The tracks are fresh, and his horse moves swiftly but carefully across the sand, each hoofbeat measured and silent, as though the desert itself guides him toward the inevitable confrontation. Back at the lodge, Lydia sits beside Shining Willow, her hands folded in her lap, her heart a drum of anxious rhythm. She watches the entrance as if expecting Nanton to return at any moment. She tries to make sense of her feelings, gratitude, fear, and an unspoken pull toward the man who saved her. Life swirls within her. She remembers the words he whispered when he first found her, "Destiny brought us together," and wonders if those words carry a meaning she cannot yet comprehend. The healer senses her unrest and speaks softly, teaching Lydia to breathe, to draw strength from the calm around her. She reminds her that the desert is not only harsh but protective, that the Apache people know its rhythms and will stand like stones between her and harm. Lydia nods, taking comfort in the wisdom. Yet still her thoughts wander to Nanton, to the steady strength he exudes, and the way his presence made the storm feel less terrifying the night she nearly lost everything. Hours pass as the sun arcs high above the sky and the air shimmers with heat waves. Nanton moves quietly along a dry riverbed, noticing small details that tell him of his adversary's path: broken twigs, displaced stones, footprints that lead toward the mountains to the north. He knows the man is armed and dangerous, and yet the chief feels no hesitation, only resolve burning through him like wildfire. He cannot allow anyone to take her from the sanctuary he has promised. Finally, he catches sight of movement, a figure hunched over a map and supplies in the shadow of a rock outcropping. The man is confident, yet unaware that every step he took brought him closer to someone far more skilled and far more determined. Nanton waits patiently, observing the patterns of the man's behavior, understanding how he thinks, how he anticipates, and using this knowledge to plan the moment when he will act. The confrontation begins without words as Nanton steps from the shadow of the rocks. His presence is commanding, the desert wind seeming to stiffen with anticipation. The man freezes for a heartbeat, recognizing too late the authority and strength before him. He reaches for a weapon, but Nanton moves faster, a blur of motion and power, and the fight is brief, sharp, and decisive. Every strike calculated, every movement meant to subdue, not destroy, and within moments the intruder lies disarmed and defeated, his threat ended without needless cruelty. Nanton looks down at the man whose pride and malice brought him here and speaks in a voice low and unwavering, "You will not follow her again. You will return from where you came and never cross these lands or face consequences you cannot escape." The defeated man nods, swallowing his fear and retreating into the desert, knowing he cannot win against the chief who protects his people. As Nanton rides back toward the lodge, the sun beginning its slow descent, he feels the weight of responsibility still heavy upon him. Yet a strange warmth fills his chest, for he has fulfilled his promise and Lydia remains safe. The wind brushes against his face, carrying the scent of sage and distant pine, and he knows that though danger will always exist, the path they have begun to walk is one he will guard with every heartbeat. When he arrives, the camp is quiet. Lydia steps out from the lodge, her face pale yet brightened with relief. She rushes forward and he slows the horse, allowing her to meet him without fear. Her hands reach for his and a silent understanding passes between them. No words are needed, for they both know that the storm was only the beginning and the desert has tested them, both showing the fragility of life and the strength that comes from trust. They walk together toward the firelight as the day fades and shadows grow long over the plains. Nanton repeats once more the words that first connected them: "Destiny brought us together," and Lydia finally believes in the weight of those words, for she feels the bond between them stronger than fear, stronger than the desert, stronger than the uncertainty of what may come next. She leans slightly into him, feeling safe, feeling chosen, and knowing the journey that lies ahead will be faced together. The evening settles over the Apache camp, and the sky turns a deep shade of orange and violet. Lydia Grace sits beside the fire, wrapped in a soft blanket, the warmth of the flames brushing her face and chasing away the lingering chill from the desert storm. She watches the shadows dance across the ground, her thoughts tangled with the events of the day. The fear she endured, the rescue by Chief Nanton, and the strange comfort that comes from being surrounded by people who care for her safety. Shining Willow sits nearby, her hands busy with weaving and grinding herbs, yet her eyes never leave Lydia, she senses the young woman's curiosity and unease and decides that now is the moment to speak more of the tribe and the customs that will shape the days to come. She tells Lydia of the Apache, ways of protection and honor, of how strangers are welcomed when they show respect, and how danger is met with courage. The words are soft and rhythmic like the wind over sand, and Lydia listens, learning and slowly trusting. The night grows cooler and the camp quiets as warriors complete their patrols and children drift into sleep. Nanton sits across the fire, his silhouette framed by the flickering flames. He watches Lydia with a careful intensity, not intruding but making sure she feels the presence of someone who has vowed to protect her, every detail of her movements, every breath she takes is noted by him, for he knows that the desert may hide threats and that even the smallest clue can signal danger. He does not speak, but the weight of his vigilance is felt by Lydia as a protective comfort. Finally, Lydia finds the courage to speak, her voice tentative yet determined. She asks Nanton why he saved her, why he risked himself for a stranger, and he looks at her with eyes steady and sure. He tells her that some things in life are not chosen by reason alone, that fate sometimes places souls in one another's path, and when that happens, it is the duty of those who recognize it to act with honor and courage. She feels the truth in his words like a seed planted deep within her heart. As the fire burns low, the topic shifts to the man who pursued her and the danger he represented. Nanton explains that he will remain vigilant, that the scouts will patrol, and that no harm will reach her while she is under their protection. Lydia's relief is profound, yet mingled with the realization that her life has changed forever. She is no longer simply a woman traveling to meet an unknown groom. She is now part of a larger story, one that includes the chief and the people who have embraced her. Shining willow suggests that rest is needed, and Lydia reluctantly agrees, though her mind buzzes with questions and emotions. She lies back against the firs, feeling the weight of the night and the presence of Nanton near her. She senses a bond forming, a quiet promise that has not been spoken in words, yet exists between them, an invisible thread connecting her fragile heart to his steady strength. Outside the lodge, the wind moves through the camp, carrying scents of pine and dry earth mingling with smoke from the fires. It whispers like a reminder of the desert's vastness and of the challenges that may yet come. Their night is peaceful for the first time since the storm, and Lydia allows herself to imagine a future without fear, though she knows that tomorrow may bring new trials. The knowledge that Nanton will stand with her gives her courage she has not known before. Before sleep overtakes her, Lydia whispers a quiet thank you into the darkness for the man who rescued her, for the chief who vowed to protect her, and for the spirits that guided their meeting. She closes her eyes, imagining the journey ahead, a path filled with uncertainty, yet illuminated by the presence of someone who sees her value and will guard her life as fiercely as he guards his own. Part 5 closes with Nanton watching her sleep, feeling a mix of relief and determination. The desert stretches endlessly around them, and though the wind may shift and storms may return, he knows he will face whatever comes with unwavering resolve. For tonight Lydia is safe, and for the first time she can rest fully, knowing that destiny has brought them together and that the story of their lives has only just begun. First light stretching across the desert horizon, casting long shadows over the Apache camp, Lydia Grace awakens, feeling the cool touch of morning air brushing her skin and the soft warmth of the firs beneath her. She stretches slowly, trying to gather her strength, while the sounds of the camp come alive around her. Children laughing in the distance, the low murmur of warriors preparing for the day, and the gentle rhythm of horses shifting in their stalls create a comforting backdrop that contrasts sharply with the chaos of the storm. And the pursuit that brought her Nanton approaches quietly, carrying a small bundle of water and dried fruit. He kneels beside her, offering it without a word, for his presence alone carries reassurance. Lydia takes the water first, feeling it soothe her parched throat, and then the fruit, a faint sweetness restoring a small measure of energy. She looks up at him with eyes Still wary, yet now filled with gratitude and something deeper, an unspoken trust that has grown since their first encounter. After breakfast, the chief gathers the scouts and speaks in low, measured tones, detailing the movements of the man who had pursued Lydia. They discuss strategies for protection and surveillance, marking areas of the desert that may conceal danger. Nanton's voice carries authority and experience, and every warrior listens with intent, understanding the gravity of the promise their chief has made to the woman in their care. Lydia watches from the edge of the gathering, feeling both awe and nervousness. She is beginning to realize the depth of commitment required to keep someone safe in this world, the knowledge that danger can appear without warning and that survival depends on vigilance and courage. She feels the bond with Nanton strengthen as she sees him command with wisdom and assertiveness, yet also care for her well-being without hesitation. Later in the morning, Shining Willow approaches Lydia with a new task, teaching her small skills that will help her navigate the life ahead. She shows her how to recognize tracks in the sand, how to identify edible plants, and how to move quietly when necessary. Lydia listens intently, absorbing each lesson while understanding that each skill is not just survival but also a connection to the land and to the people who now protect her. She begins to feel a sense of belonging, something she has never known before. The afternoon brings a subtle tension as scouts return, reporting unusual tracks near the ridge, suggesting that someone may be approaching. Once more, Nanton studies the prints with careful eyes, confirming that the path is not from the man defeated yesterday, but another who may be seeking the same goal. The chief makes a swift decision, instructing scouts to monitor from a distance and maintain concealment while he positions himself between Lydia and the potential threat. As evening descends, Lydia feels a mixture of fear and anticipation. Her heart pounds not just from the thought of danger but from the realization that her life is now intertwined with Nanton's every decision. She watches him move with purpose, understanding that he has placed her safety above all else. The camp settles around them, the fires casting long, flickering shadows across the ground, and the desert wind whispering through the tents and lodges, carrying both warning and comfort. That night, around the fire, Nanton speaks softly to Lydia, explaining that the desert is full of tests, not all of them physical. Some challenge trust, courage, and the ability to remain calm when fear threatens to overwhelm. She listens carefully, her hand brushing against his, unintentionally feeling the warmth and strength in his presence. She begins to understand that protection is not just about strength or weapons, but about presence and attention, the steady knowledge that someone will not allow harm to reach her before sleep overtakes her. Nanton offers a final word, promising vigilance and steadfast care. Lydia closes her eyes, feeling the weight of his promise and the strange certainty that no matter what the desert brings, she will not face it alone. Part 6 closes with the camp quieting under a blanket of stars, the desert vast and mysterious, yet filled with signs of life and protection, and Lydia drifting into rest, feeling both safe and aware that her journey with Nanton and the people of this land has only deepened and will continue to unfold in ways she has yet to imagine. The sun climbs high over the desert, casting sharp light across the Apache camp. Lydia Grace rises early, feeling a renewed strength from the lessons of the previous day. She moves quietly through the lodge, watching the warriors and children prepare for their daily routines, and noticing how seamlessly the tribe functions as a single living force. She feels a strange fascination and respect for their ways, understanding that survival in this land demands unity, courage, and attentiveness. Chief Nanton approaches with a steady gait, carrying a small bundle of provisions for her. He gestures for her to follow as he leads her to the edge of the camp, where the sand meets scrubby brush and low rocky ridges. The air is still and warm, carrying distant scents of pine and sage, and Lydia realizes that each step outside the safety of the lodge is a lesson in awareness. She follows silently, trusting his guidance and feeling the bond between them strengthen with every stride. They come upon a small clearing where Nanton kneels, showing her the tracks left by animals and the subtle differences that indicate whether a predator has passed through or a human has moved nearby. Lydia leans in, studying the impressions in the sand, the broken twigs and displaced stones, realizing how carefully the chief observes every detail, how he reads the land like a book written in invisible script. He explains without words what each mark might mean, and she begins to understand that survival is as much about knowledge and intuition as it is about strength. Later, the scouts return, bringing news that a rider was spotted near the northern ridge, moving cautiously as though searching for someone or something. Nanton listens attentively, absorbing every detail and instructing his men to maintain concealment and report all movement. Lydia feels a shiver of unease, yet also a strange thrill at witnessing how decisively and calmly he handles danger. She realizes that she is learning not just survival, but also courage and composure by watching him. By midday, the camp prepares for potential visitors. The children are brought closer to the lodge, and the women adjust their activities. Keeping watchful eyes on the horizon, Lydia helps in small ways, carrying water and arranging furs. She notices how the chief's presence influences everyone, his attention and command respected without question, yet never harsh or unnecessary. She begins to feel a deep appreciation, not just for his skill, but for his honor and the quiet authority that draws people to him. As afternoon wanes, the desert wind shifts, carrying a faint sound of hooves in the distance. Lydia and Nanton pause, listening, the scouts signaling from the ridges that movement is approaching. The chief studies the horizon, his eyes narrowing, assessing distance, speed, and direction. Lydia feels her pulse quicken, yet there is trust within her, knowing that he is prepared for whatever comes their way. She observes how his every action is deliberate, every decision precise and calm. When the rider finally comes into view, it is not the man who pursued her before, but a messenger bearing news from a distant settlement. This moment of relief brings Lydia a chance to breathe, yet she realizes that the desert never stays quiet for long, that the threat may have shifted, yet the need for vigilance remains. Nanton receives the message and responds, swiftly making plans for continued security and for the tribe's ongoing protection of their land and people. As evening falls, Lydia sits near the fire, watching the sunset paint the desert in colors she has never known before and feeling a profound sense of connection. She reflects on how much has changed in the few days since the storm and the wagon, and how her life has become intertwined with Nanton and the Apache people. She senses the weight of responsibility and protection and the quiet power of trust forming between them. Before sleep, she whispers a quiet prayer of gratitude for the chief, for Shining Willow, and for the tribe, and for the fate that brought her here. She closes her eyes, feeling the warmth of the fire and the presence of Nanton. Nearby, Part 7 closes with the desert stretching endlessly beyond the camp, the stars beginning to appear above, and Lydia resting with the knowledge that though challenges remain, she is no longer alone, and her life is now guided by the hands of one who will protect her without hesitation. Desert sky a pale gold as dawn touches the camp. Lydia Grace awakens to the soft sounds of the wind brushing against the lodge walls and the faint rustle of horses moving in their pens. She stretches slowly, feeling the warmth of the furs beneath her and the protective presence of Nanton, who stands nearby watching over the camp with steady eyes. His vigilance has become a constant comfort and a reminder that she is not alone in this harsh land. Morning is spent learning and observing. Nanton teaches Lydia to read the subtle signs of the desert, the way shadows shift with the sun, how to track movement through sand, how to notice small disturbances that indicate life or threat. He demonstrates with patience, guiding her hands over impressions in the earth, pointing out what might escape the untrained eye. Lydia listens, carefully absorbing every detail, understanding that knowledge and awareness are as vital to survival as courage or strength. Later, the scouts return, reporting that tracks of a new rider appear near the eastern ridge, moving cautiously as if testing the land for signs of presence or pursuit. Nanton studies the marks with a keen eye and instructs his men to Maintain concealment and continue observation. Lydia watches the chief's careful assessment, feeling a mixture of fear and admiration. She senses the quiet power in his every decision, the way he anticipates danger without showing haste, and the way his focus never wavers from protecting those under his care. As the sun climbs higher, the camp moves with a steady rhythm. Women prepare food, children play within safe bounds, and warriors patrol the surrounding terrain. Nanton moves among them, offering guidance and reassurance without breaking the flow of daily life. Lydia notices how seamlessly he balances authority with care, and realizes that leadership is not just about strength, but about presence and attention to every detail. She feels herself growing more connected to the tribe and to Nanton, whose quiet strength anchors her in the midst of uncertainty. Midday brings a tense moment when scouts signal that movement is increasing near the ridge, a shadowed figure approaching, yet still distant enough to allow preparation. Nanton positions his men strategically, assigning watches and coordinating signals, while Lydia helps with small tasks, keeping furs and supplies ready. She notices the way every action of the chief is deliberate and precise, ensuring safety without panic. The desert teaches patience and the need to act only when necessary. By late afternoon, the rider draws closer and the camp holds its breath. The figure reveals itself to be a messenger bringing urgent news from a neighboring settlement regarding increased activity among raiders who threaten travelers along the trade routes. Nanton receives the message calmly, issuing instructions for continued vigilance and protection. He explains to Lydia that the desert is never idle, that danger can come in many forms, and that the tribe must be prepared at all times. She absorbs his words, understanding that her life now is tied to the rhythms of this land and to the chief who guides her through it. As evening falls, the sky glows with deep orange and purple. Lydia sits beside the fire, watching the shadows dance across the sand, feeling a mixture of awe and relief. She reflects on how much has changed since the storm and the wagon, how the chief's presence has become a pillar of safety and trust. She senses the growing bond between them, a connection forged not by words alone, but by shared experience and reliance in the face of adversity. Before sleep, she whispers a silent prayer of gratitude for Nanton, for Shining Willow, and for the tribe who welcomed her with care and protection. She feels the weight of the desert around her, the vastness of the land, and the certainty that challenges will come, yet knows that with vigilance, courage, and trust, she is no longer alone. Part 8 closes with Lydia resting beneath the stars, the fire casting a warm glow, and the chief watching over the camp, ready to meet whatever the desert may bring with unwavering resolve. The desert sky softens with the first light of dawn, and Lydia Grace awakens feeling a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. She stretches, slowly sensing the calm of the camp around her and the steady presence of Chief Nanton nearby, whose watchful eyes have become her anchor over the past days. He moves among the warriors with quiet authority, checking on preparations for the day and ensuring that all is ready for any challenge that might appear from the vast desert beyond the camp. After a light breakfast, Nanton approaches Lydia carrying water and a small bundle of food. He offers it without a word, and the gesture carries more meaning than any explanation could. His steady presence gives her a sense of security and trust that she has not felt in her life before. As she drinks the water and tastes the food, she realizes that her survival now depends not just on her own actions, but on the vigilance and experience of the chief and the people surrounding her. The morning is filled with lessons and preparation. Nanton teaches Lydia how to move silently through sand and brush, how to recognize tracks of animals and humans, how to read the wind for signs of danger. Every detail is precise and deliberate, and Lydia absorbs each lesson, understanding that survival requires patience, observation, and careful decision-making. She feels herself growing stronger and more aware, not just of the land, but of the rhythms of the tribe and of the bond forming between her and Nanton. By midday, the scouts return, reporting increased activity on the northern ridge. The signs indicate that someone has been watching the camp from a distance, testing the security of the area and perhaps planning a move. Nanton studies the tracks with careful attention and gives orders to maintain concealment and observation while he positions himself strategically to protect the lodge and the people. Within, Lydia watches his movements with awe and a quiet fear, understanding that the chief carries the weight of responsibility for her life and the lives of all in the camp. The afternoon brings tension as the figure approaches more clearly, now revealing itself as a messenger carrying news from a distant settlement. Warning of bandits moving along trade routes, the camp prepares quickly yet calmly, adjusting watches and ensuring that children and women are safely within the lodge. The presence of Nanton inspires confidence in everyone, and Lydia feels a deep sense of reassurance knowing that she is under the protection of someone who will not allow harm to reach her. As evening falls, the desert air cools and the firelight illuminates the faces of the camp. Lydia sits near the flames, her thoughts heavy with reflection. She thinks of the storm and the wagon, of days past, of the fear and near death she experienced, and of the chief who rescued her without hesitation. She feels gratitude and an emerging affection, a quiet bond that has grown from trust, reliance, and the shared understanding that life is fragile, yet precious. Nanton sits across the cane chits across the fire, observing the camp and Lydia. He offers no words, yet his presence communicates protection and care. Night stretches around them, filled with the sounds of the desert wind, the distant call of animals, and the soft murmur of the camp settling for sleep. Lydia feels the weight of the day lift from her shoulders and the assurance of safety in his vigilance. Before closing her eyes, she whispers a quiet prayer, thanking the spirits for guiding her, to the chief for keeping her alive through the storm, and for the tribe that has welcomed her. She feels the bond between herself and Nanton deepening, a connection forged through shared trials and protection. Part 9 closes with the desert vast and still around them, the stars beginning to appear above the camp, and Lydia resting with the knowledge that destiny has brought them together and that their journey together will face whatever challenges may arise with courage, trust, and unwavering resolve. A sunset stretches across the desert horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. Lydia Grace stands near the edge of the Apache camp, feeling the warmth of the fire at her back and the steady presence of Chief Nanton beside her. The past days have shifted her life completely. From the terror of the storm and the abandoned wagon to the protection and guidance of a man who has become her anchor and the tribe that has embraced her as one of their own. The evening air carries the scent of sage and dry earth and the soft murmur of the camp settling into the night. Lydia reflects on the journey that has brought her here, the fear, the near death, the rescue, and the lessons in survival and trust. She feels gratitude swelling in her chest for Nanton, whose vigilance has never wavered, whose strength and courage ensured her safety, and whose quiet presence gave her a sense of belonging she has never known. Nanton kneels beside her, pointing out the constellations forming above the desert sky, teaching her their names and stories. The stars glimmer like scattered diamonds, and Lydia listens, absorbing not just the knowledge, but the intimacy of the moment. The chief, sharing his wisdom and history with her in a way that feels personal and sacred. She senses the depth of his character, the honor and loyalty that shapes every action he takes, and the protective force that guided him to her. When she lay broken in the sand, as the night grows deeper, scouts return, reporting that the land surrounding the camp is clear and no threat approaches. They speak in quiet tones, respecting the tranquility of the moment, knowing that the chief has ensured their safety and the safety of the woman he has chosen to protect. Lydia feels a sense of relief, but also a recognition that her life has irrevocably changed. She is no longer a stranger wandering through the desert, but a part of this tribe and connected to Nanton in a way that feels destined. The camp gathers for a quiet ceremony marking her acceptance and safety. Within the Apache Nation, Shining Willow speaks softly, acknowledging her courage and resilience, and the chief stands behind her, offering silent support. The women and children of the camp gather close, and the warriors remain vigilant yet relaxed, knowing the danger has passed and that the desert has once again revealed the strength of their chief and the bond formed between him and the woman he rescued. Lydia steps forward, feeling the eyes of the tribe upon her. She speaks a few words of gratitude, her voice steady yet filled with emotion, expressing thanks for their protection, for the lessons in courage and awareness, and for the place she now holds among them. The chief's gaze meets hers, and in that moment she sees not only protection, but understanding, commitment, and a promise of a shared path ahead. As the ceremony concludes, the desert sky darkens, further stars gleaming bright above the camp. Lydia and Nanton walk together to the fire, their steps synchronized, a quiet harmony settling between them. She feels a warmth and certainty in his presence, a recognition that her life has been touched by something greater than chance, by a destiny that brought them together in the midst of chaos. And Survival Nanton finally speaks, softly repeating the words he whispered when he first found her in the desert. Destiny brought us together. He watches her closely, noting the soft acceptance and gratitude in her eyes, and in that moment Lydia understands fully the weight of those words and the journey that lies ahead, a future of trust, care, and companionship, bound by the trials of the desert and the strength of their bond. Part 10 closes with the fire crackling softly beneath the vast expanse of the desert night, Lydia leaning slightly into Nanton, feeling the security and warmth of his presence. The camp rests peacefully around them, the wind carrying whispers of the land and spirits, and she allows herself to imagine a life no longer defined by fear or abandonment, but advancement, by the connection, protection, and destiny that have brought them together and will guide their journey forward side by side.